Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Step into the Pivot. We are so happy to have you here and so happy to have today's guest, Helen McConnell. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Teresa and Ivana. I'm delighted to be here, truly.
Awesome. So I'm excited for today. I know you're going to tell us your story, and I know we're going to get to the point where you're going to talk about, how you kind of have this emotional freedom, right? How you focus a lot on stress reduction and some of the tools you use. But I think for us to get there, we're going to talk a little about your story. So even I'm going to let you kind of move us right into Helen's story.
Yes, thank you, Teresa. Hi, Helen. So great to see you here.
Thank you.
I have the benefit of seeing you fairly often in our neighborhood. We don't live too far away from each other, and we often take lovely walks together where we discuss some of the things that I am so excited to bring to our listeners. I met you, Helen, when I was ready to move some significant trauma out of my system. And your name came highly recommended as a leading expert in tapping, a very specific technique that you practice and that you teach. And I used it and it worked. So this is like, we could just stop right here and be like, yep.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to hear a direct testimonial? Absolutely. This is something, the technique we're going to talk about, tapping, emotional freedom technique. You taught it to me, and it's something that I use regularly. But today we're really here to hear your story and your personal pivots and how tapping showed up in your life as a very important tool. But we're curious to know, you have had so many different transitions and changes and pivots, and you talk about them so bravely and courageously. Please, take us into your story and tell us about, who you are, where you come from, and what your big pivots were leading up to tapping.
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, I guess if you live long enough, you will have pivots in your life. I mean, life gives us pivots. I can't honestly say that I planned all my pivots. I don't think I planned any of them. But when I was younger, when I was in my teens and 20s, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I mean, I guess you would say I was a functioning alcoholic and drug addict, but I was both those things. And somehow in there, I managed to have a career as an executive manager. And I guess the drugs and the alcohol and all the emotions that went with that really kind of pushed me, maybe guilt or shame or whatever. I don't know. I worked really hard and I drank a lot and did a lot of drugs. So one day I was I was 29 years old and I was driving in my elegant BMW in Hawaii where I lived and that's where I grew up. And I had all these things in my life. I had a great condo. I had beautiful clothes. I had this job. I had this nice car. I'd already been married and divorced once. And I was driving somewhere, I don't remember, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose it all. Like that was the impetus for the initial pivot, I think, was losing all my stuff. I mean, I was probably going to lose my life too, but that was not the first thing that came to mind. So at that point, I knew enough to know I knew about AA and stuff, and I thought, I don't need that. I don't need that. I can do this on my own. And I even wrote in a journal, I'm an alcoholic. Oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. But I don't want to go to any of those stupid meetings. I was already judging them as stupid, even though I'd never been to one. And fortunately, or unfortunately, I couldn't stay sober on my own. I tried everything. But probably a year later, I asked a friend of mine at work if she could help me because I knew she was in AA. And when I asked her, I said, I need help. I'm an alcoholic. She cried out of joy and I laughed out of relief. And she took me to a meeting. And in that moment, at my very first meeting, was very unique situation. And I had one of those moments where it was totally life-changing. This AA meeting had 1,000 people at it. It was an AA conference, and it was just what I needed. And I did everything I could to try to get out of going and get out of staying. But once I got there, I was like, something shifted immediately. The first night I went, out to my car afterwards and I actually said, "Thank you, God." I had never said anything like that in my life. And so that was the biggest initial pivot that I can remember, because the very next day and the day after that, all the time after that, when I went to work on Monday, people said, "What happened to you?" Like they could see the change. So when we have a big pivot, a big change that involves spirituality and emotion and stuff like that, it shows on our physical features. So I guess I thought, okay, this is good. I really enjoyed it. I loved AA. I kept going, and from 29 until I don't know when, I stayed sober. I never wanted to drink again. I had stopped using drugs, all this stuff. And so I thought I had it all together. And it was quite a few years after that that I discovered tapping, EFT tapping. And if you don't know what that is, I just encourage you to just look it up, look up EFT tapping so you can find out what it is. But it came to me in an email. And I remember thinking before that, that even though I'd been sober a long time by then, 20 years or 25 years, I don't know, I had 4 kids by then. I was a single mom. I had my own business. I was doing things on my own. And I thought I was keeping it all together. But I was feeling still kind of squirmy and uncomfortable inside, despite the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and all of that stuff. I worked hard at those steps. I did everything. And then this email came to me, and it was a tapping email. It had a video attached. It said, "Just tap along with this and see what happens." So I tapped along, and tapping, if you know, it's super simple. I mean, it's so simple. So I was tapping with the gal on the video in the email. And I remember getting just like 2 minutes into it and just feeling this huge release of what I now know is an energetic release, like stuck energy. It was probably, you know, 30 years or 40 years of energy that just went whoosh. So, and it was relief and release. And I thought, this is cool. I want to learn more about this. I mean, I'd done lots of things. I'd tried all kinds of therapies and things to try to be okay with myself. But it wasn't until that moment where I thought, wow, this is the tool I've been looking for my whole life to get to the physical, emotional, spiritual, all in one fell swoop. So I did look into it. I found out more about it. I became just a rabid fan of tapping and decided to study it. I went for training. I decided to become a practitioner. And that's when my life really, really began to change. I was using it as a kind of a novice. Hadn't hung my shingle out yet. I hadn't gotten certified, but I was using it. And I remember the day that I had the other pivot. I mean, I've had lots of them, but I was a manager, and I was attending this panel discussion where I worked. And I don't know if you've ever had this type of experience where the panel says, "Any questions?" And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, yes, I have a question." But I was so afraid to raise my hand. Turns out I had a fear of public speaking, which I knew. But before I even raised my hand, I could feel my voice getting all shaky and my body was started to shake. So I remembered in that moment to start doing just a little tapping. No one would have known what I was doing. But I started tapping around the tapping points, and all of a sudden, my hand shot up. It was like of its own volition. It was like I wasn't really in charge anymore. My hand just went woo, and they called on me. And here's the first amazing thing. I asked the question with a voice that was steady and firm, no nervousness in my voice at all, which doesn't happen to everybody, but if you have any kind of fear of speaking in public, the voice is one of the first indicators that, like, oh God, I'm really nervous. But my voice didn't sound shaky and I wasn't nervous. And I asked the question, and the second sort of miracle thing that happened was I heard the answer. And I know that I'd been in that position before to ask a question in a public setting like that. And once I ask the question, I can't even hear what's going on. All I have is this noise in my head. But that went away that day. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have to get this tapping out to everybody on the planet who's afraid to speak up. So that just was the more encouragement for me to get my certification and practice. And public speaking is just one of the many, many things I've used tapping for in my own life and in the lives of my clients and literally with strangers. I've tapped with strangers. So um, the the traumas that I grew up with, and I did have, I mean, you don't become an alcoholic for no reason. I had quite a few traumas as a child, and I lived in a family of that was just very dysfunctional. And I was able to tap away all of that old trauma. So one of the things I love about tapping is, you know, even though you and I have talked about this a lot, like, oh, I wish I'd had this when I was young. Like, wouldn't it have been, what would have been like if I'd tapped on this when I was young? Well, it would have been great, but I didn't. But now I can go back and tap on my younger self and help release all that stuff. I've done a lot of that. So, and that in a very rapid nutshell brings me to where I am today. I did get certified. I am a certified EFT practitioner. I've been practicing for about, I want to say 15 years. And I've worked with so many different people on so many different issues. So to me, when I describe tapping and what it's good for, it's good for anything that ails a human, which is, I mean, it's emotional freedom technique is its true name. And so we as humans we have emotions involved in literally everything we do, every decision we make, every step we take, there are emotions involved. And that doesn't mean we have to tap all that stuff away, but a lot of our old emotions and traumas and stuff like that are really holding us back even now. So my goal in life is to help people get free so they can have a really joyful, free life.
Yeah. Amazing story. You're right. I mean, I love that you talk about how, that there were a lot of traumas like early on, right? That now you're working on freeing and how that works. And I know even is gonna wants to talk a little bit more about the tapping, but sometimes we don't know kind of what causes that to happen just at that moment and to push you that because clearly to me based on what you said that's what pushed you to realize, hey, you needed to stop drinking, you needed to stop doing drugs. I mean, do you agree with that? Do you have any idea of what pushed you that way that day? And maybe you don't. Like I'm
Well,
just always curious about it.
I don't know exactly that day what pushed me, but I would me in my life, I would say that there was some kind of divine intervention. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like
No,
I didn't plan
no.
it. And the way it all came about is truly amazing. I couldn't have planned it myself. So
Well, maybe that was, some divine intervention telling you you needed to make this change, or like you said, you were going to lose your life. Like maybe I'm a firm believer in that sometimes those things happen. And I think you and I've talked enough to know that you probably are too, right? That some things push us that way. And sometimes we just need to listen to it and listen to our body or listen
absolutely.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
what the universe is telling us.
Absolutely. And what I have found over the years, because tapping works like on a layer, you can layer it, like you can just get more and more resilient as time goes on if you do it consistently. That I know pretty much when my body's trying to tell me something. And I didn't used to know that. I used to just react, not respond. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things we get.
Yeah, and I know even is going to ask you some more questions about tapping, and I want you to do that. But like you even did it before we started this podcast. You felt you needed it to relax and get ready to tell your story. So you showed me then how you use that.
Yeah, I want to, before I started, I could kind of feel my brain getting a little bit nervous. I'm not afraid to speak in public, but there's still a part of me that says, what if, what if, what if? And so I just calm myself down, doing a little tapping and little deep breathing, and I can feel it just, it just sort of whooshes and balances out. Yeah. I use it
Yeah.
for everything.
And it took only seconds. Like we're really talking about, so to our listeners, what Helen is describing, she did that as we were just getting organized. And it was like, I mean, maybe a minute and a half, maybe. So
Maybe.
I love that. And I was thinking, we don't have a lot of time left. But because of that, I think it's really cool to give one round of tapping a go because I have an actual situation where I could use it. And by doing so, maybe we can verbally also present to our listeners the key tapping points. So, you know, as
Absolutely.
you know, some folks listen to this only on audio. Those of you who check out the YouTube channel, you can see Helen tapping. We're also going to put in the show notes at least a couple of different videos that Helen has out there to teach the whole technique. But I think it's really a great coincidence that I actually have coming up in about a week a public speaking situation that I am not scared of. So I would not classify it as I'm afraid of public speaking. I have a lot of experience, I've done it, but something's just not quite, ready and relaxed. And I could use a little support around it. So I'll let you take over here and we can do
Absolutely.
express round.
And I'll do my best to describe the tapping points. And if you're listening, I'm going to encourage you to tap along and just notice what happens. Even if you're not, if you don't have a public speaking event coming up, think of anything that's bugging you and tap with us and repeat our words and notice what happens in your body. It is profoundly powerful. So the first thing I would ask you, Ivana, with this event coming up, when you think about it, and with tapping, we focus on the negative because we want to bring it up and clear it out. What do you notice in your body that tells you that you're not quite, what was the word you used? Not quite relaxed about it.
Mhm. I noticed that I breathe shallowly and my jaw is really tense when I think about it, and that I am sort of like fluttering up and out of my body when I consider it.
Okay.
It's easy for me to pinpoint that because I've been training myself to quickly like tune into these sensations.
Mhm.
The sensations are in a nutshell of like I kind of like just want to leave. I don't want to do it. I just
Oh,
want to
okay.
get out of there.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a great way to say fight or flight. Our bot, we want to
Mhm.
leave. We don't want to, we want to flee the situation, even though your conscious mind says, no, this is nothing to be afraid of. I mean, but your body, somewhat something in your nervous system from God knows from when you were two, maybe, is telling you this could be a problem. So I'm just going to invite you on a scale of 0 to 10. How tense does your jaw feel right now?
Ooh,
With 10.
tenser than I thought. So when I brought this up, I was all like, woohoo, cheerful. We're just gonna do tapping for our listeners. But now that we're doing it for real, I'd say it's a 7.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I like to measure only it's subjective and it's just so we can see if we make any headway. Okay.
yeah.
Right. So I'm going to use some words and I'm not going to get too much into it, but everybody just do what I do with Ivana, tap along. First of all, I want you to take a nice deep breath, gentle breath in and exhale. And kind of feel where you are right now. For you, you're sitting in a chair. Just feel your butt in the chair. And we're going to start tapping by tapping on the side of our hand. We used to call it the karate chop point. Now we just call it the side of the hand, but that helps you know where it is. And we're going to say these words and you're going to repeat after me. You can say, even though I feel this tension in my jaw
Even though I feel this tension in my jaw
and my breathing is a little shallow,
and my breathing is a little shallow,
when I think about this upcoming speaking event,
when I think about this upcoming speaking event,
I choose to accept myself and how I feel.
I choose to accept myself and how I feel.
Okay, and we usually do it 3 times. Just say, even though I feel this tension in my jaw,
Even though I feel this tension in my jaw,
when I think about this speaking event,
when I think about this speaking event,
I choose to accept all of me.
I choose to accept all of me.
And one more time to say, even though I feel this tension in my jaw,
Even though I feel this tension in my jaw,
add a 7.
at a 7,
When I think about this event coming up,
when I think about this event coming up,
okay, I choose to accept myself completely.
I choose to accept myself completely.
All right, now we're just going to dive right in. Just go to the top of the head, and we do what we call a reminder phrase, just so we can remember what we're tapping on. You can say this tension in my jaw,
This tension in my jaw,
on the eyebrow, thinking about this speaking event.
thinking about this speaking event,
Side of the eye, this tension in my jaw.
this tension in my jaw.
Under the eye, when I think about this upcoming event.
When I think about this upcoming event,
Under the nose, this tension in my jaw.
this tension in my jaw,
On the chin, at about a 7.
at about a 7,
On the collarbones, this tension in my jaw.
this tension in my jaw.
Under the arm, when I think about this speaking event.
When I think about this speaking event.
Okay, so that's what we call one round of tapping, and I'm going to stop because I noticed even like exhaling, her body just went. Did you feel that, or was
That
that
was
my imagination?
huge. Oh my gosh, it was just like that thing that you were describing, the swoosh, all this like stress just sort of like dumped out of my body. It
Yeah.
was already feeling so much better. I was starting to feel so good just by starting to like with the tapping points, like, and just and really, I'm saying it like that. I know it sounds weird. Yeah. Like it's like this connection is
Oh,
just
very
so, it was so
appropriate. Yeah.
so, right. It's so like, oh my God, I'm paying attention to myself. Already it dropped, you know?
Yeah.
But then by the point we came to the collarbones, I was just like, oh, whoosh. So, mm,
So just to kind of firm things up a little bit, I don't always do this, but put your hands on opposite shoulders. So your right hand on your left shoulder, left hand on your right shoulder, and just kind of smooth down your arms. This is called havening. It's an actual kind of goes along with tapping to help you just go, oh my God, I needed a hug, and I'm giving myself a hug. It's kind of like that.
yeah.
All right. And
I
then
want to say here, Helen, because I've used this also, so much of our longing for connection is, we tap into, we unintended, tap into these young states where you just needed to be held when you were tiny. And it really is not important right now that I know like what version of me is crying for which parent.
right,
That's not
right.
the point. But there's something here that's really benefiting from this kind of like self-parenting. So when I do this, it just feels like I'm basically really letting myself know that there's this like mature energy here and I'm okay.
And
It
our
feels okay to feel okay.
our culture that we live in just really frowns on a lot of touching and hugging. I'm a big hugger, so, but a lot of people, especially in the business world, are not big on hugging.
Well, I'm a big hugger, so yeah, everybody knows that about me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think because it is connection, right? It is all those kind of things. And I think what you've just showed us, and even as she said she was going to ask you where your tension went, you said it was a 7.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
less now?
that's what I was going to ask
Two.
next.
Yeah.
Absolutely a 2. And this was just
Oh,
after one round. I think and I can do a little more when we're finished recording. I'll do one more round. It amazing, like so fast. It
yeah.
definitely shifted.
Well, I could almost see it. Like if people are watching us on YouTube, we could almost see it. And I could see how that can really like change our whole thought process and our whole thing. So, Helen, thank you for being here today. I would love to ask you, we always ask a final question, which is how is this pivot a step forward? So, do you want to just tell us in one sentence or in your own words, and maybe it's not a sentence, maybe it's longer than that, how you think that this really helped you and helped you move forward?
It completely changed my life, my perspective, my work, the reason I'm here. It changed it. I mean, I didn't even know why I was here, but this helped me find it. So I do believe that sometimes I'll think maybe I should stop doing this and find something else to do, but then my heart and my soul just says, no, this is what you're here to do.
Yep. If
And
it works for you and it's working for others, why would you change that?
I absolutely love helping people, especially when they have trauma and they get past their trauma. Oh my God, it's like I get to participate in a miracle.
Awesome. I know you're doing amazing work, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Helen. And on the note of more time, absolutely so easy to have more time with Helen. She's got amazing resources, free resources online. So check it out. We put it in the show notes.
Awesome. And for our listeners, thank you for being here today. And remember, if you have a pivot, step into it.